If there's anything that I love more than talking about the Vancouver Canucks and the Montreal Canadiens, it's talking about the Canucks and the Canadiens and whether or not their guys could get sent elsewhere. Today we're talking about the Ottawa Senators, and this post made by Ryan Lambert on the Hockey News that describes how they are looking to add a pure sniper. But who is left to target? That is the question. This article will be linked in the description if you want to go out there and read it yourself, but as the title insinuates, this is a piece that dives into some names that could be on the Ottawa Senators acquisition radar, a team that, as Steve Staios confirmed, already knew Brady Tkachuk wanted to leave as far back as maybe a year ago. So, in comes the new era. You've got William Eklund, who was acquired from the San Jose Sharks, and you potentially have some other guys that could be named as well. How about Brock Boeser of the Vancouver Canucks? Patrik Laine, who at the time of recording this audio was still a free agent, who did nothing with the Montreal Canadiens this most recent season. Let's go out there and read what Lambert writes about and whom it is this team in Ottawa could potentially target. Senators GM Steve Staios feels good about the work they have done this offseason, but he would still love to add a pure sniper. The issue is, there aren't many available at the moment. Given everything that's happened so far in this summer, the Ottawa Senators are apparently not quite comfortable with their roster at this time. While GM Steve Staios recently told TSN 1200 that the team feels good about what they've accomplished, moving on from the headaches of Brady Tkachuk, replacing him with William Eklund, bringing back Claude Giroux and Nick Cousins, there are still some nagging issues on the roster. While the team scored 275 goals last season, 8th most in the NHL, but crucially just 4th most in their own division, they punched above their weight a little bit in terms of expected goals. Removing the kind of scorer that Brady Tkachuk represents, who scores about 30 goals per 82 games as a pure net front crash and bang guy, is a problem. But Staios also told TSN they would like to add a pure sniper. So, let's go out there and take a look at some of these options that are available. Vladimir Tarasenko was an interesting one because, of course, he did play in Ottawa before as a one-year rental. He scored 17 goals in 57 games for them, which is decent, before he got traded to Florida and won yet another Stanley Cup. If all involved enjoyed his time there and a trade was merely logistical, then it's easy to see the Senators getting back together with Tarasenko. But given Ottawa's cap space, he would likely have to take a pay cut, and not a lot of players seem to be doing that these days. Yeah, that's a very fair point. Leo Carlson broke the market after all. Now, these are the two guys that I wanted to talk about the most. Let's talk about Patrik Laine, left wing, UFA, another UFA winger who has scored a lot of goals in the past, but there is way more inherent risk with Laine than with Vladimir Tarasenko. Long gone, it seems, are the days when Laine was a player who could pop in 30 no problem. But even during his limited time with Columbus or Montreal, he at least scored at a solid clip. 84 goals in 231 games. But Laine's mental health struggles and numerous injuries have limited his availability. Just 5 games last season, and he hasn't played more than 56 since 2019-20. The upside here is obvious. When he's going at even like 80%, there are maybe 24 guys who put the puck in the net more effectively. 24? More like 6 or 7, period? And while his more recent difficulties might lower the asking price to the point it makes sense for the Senators and the player, but it also feels like there is a really good chance he continues to spend long stretches of the season unavailable or ineffective. So that's a risk-reward situation the Senators will have to take a really long look at. Laine is great. Like, when he is at his peak, this is one of the most unmatched talents in the National Hockey League when it comes to just strictly putting the damn biscuit in the basket. 28 years old, second overall back in 2016, a guy who potted in 36, 44, and 30 goals per season at ages 18, 19, and 20. Patrik Laine established himself as a star, but as the years went on, so did the injury issues, so did the mentality issues, so did the dysfunction in the Winnipeg Jets locker room issues with Blake Wheeler and all those other guys. And inevitably, Patrik Laine got traded over to Columbus, where he continued actually scoring at a decent rate. Maybe not goal-scoring wise, but assist-wise, he was a point-per-game player. But it wasn't until that season after where things started to really take a downturn with his availability. He only had 9 points, but he had 18 games too, so really not an available player by any stretch of the imagination. Laine then got sent over to Montreal, full salary included, $8.7 million a year, and posted up what was a very nice campaign with 20 goals and 52 total. Sure, the consistency was nowhere to be found with Laine outside of maybe a stretch of a few weeks, but that one stretch allowed the Canadiens to make the playoffs. Laine was burying everything that moved into the back of the net on the power play, and that was the electric spark that this team needed to fully take their foot and stomp it down on the gas pedal. We're going balls to the wall. We're showing that our rebuild is in a better spot than anybody would have predicted. We're making the playoffs. We're losing in round 1 to Washington, but it's still fine. And that set the Canadiens up to having success in 25-26. They made the third round. Patrik Laine was on the team, $8.7 million, but he only played 5 games and had 1 assist, and he didn't play in the playoffs either. Laine is an enigma at this point. We don't know just how much he is willing to give on the ice, or how much he is physically able to give on the ice in the grand old 2026. That's not to say that Laine can't be effective, it's just, I think the odds of him being that 40-goal guy are very slim. The odds of him even being a 20-goal guy are also not all too likely. So, could the Ottawa Senators take a swing on one of the guys that played for a big rival and just see what they could do with this fantastic fit? If Laine is able to come back and be the best version of himself, then you're looking at a guy who can fully replace that Brady Tkachuk production. Add on William Eklund, the return of Claude Giroux, Tim Stützle taking a step, and boom, you got a team that actually looks pretty solid. But that depends on Laine, though. Is he as good as he could be? Let's go back over to the article and read what the trade market looks like over here. Lambert then goes out there and writes about the Vancouver Canucks, how they are rebuilding, and the Sens still have picks to deal from the Tkachuk trade. Brock Boeser is a guy who had scored 87 goals over the last 3 years and was now a consistent 20-goal scorer. He could be a realistic option. Boeser, along with teammates Elias Pettersson and Jake DeBrusk, have full movement protection. Would he waive to come to Ottawa? That, I think, is a pretty big question, and one that I honestly don't know if I have the answer to. We know that Boeser would have gone to Minnesota, not just because Quinn Hughes is over there, but because he's from Burnsville and he likes the idea of going home. We've always been saying that Boeser could be a Wild at some point. But what's also apparent is that he loves playing in Vancouver. This is a guy who was adopted into BC. He loves it here. He is spending a lot of time here all the time, and even though Boeser does seem like a very attractive option for a team looking to acquire a 20-plus goal scorer who has a 40-goal season under his belt, Brock Boeser, I just don't know if he's a guy that would waive to go to a team like Ottawa. If he was really intent on just being a part of a competitive team, I could see it. But Brock is a lot more of that more sentimental, emotional guy, rather than a player who is strictly all about business and winning, like certain American captains of Canadian hockey teams. Either way, if Boeser were to be available on the trade market and willing to waive for a team like Ottawa, I actually do think he'd be a pretty good fit over there as some sort of a mirror-imaged replacement for what Claude Giroux could have provided. Now, I know Giroux ended up sticking around in Ottawa, but that makes it a little bit more fun. If you have Boeser and Giroux alongside of a William Eklund potentially feeding these guys, I do think that's a really good formula for success. Boeser, if you play him with the right sort of playmaker, can do some really great things. Having him alongside of Tim Stützle, he could get 30 goals a season if he's alongside of him. He had 40 goals with JT Miller. He's been a very nice positionally placed goal scorer over the years. Brock Boeser is a really great player, and even though he's making 7.2 till the end of 2032, with all the cap going up and all these other players getting more money, I think that's a reasonable contract, is it not? Would he waive? That's the big question. But you can let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Whether it's Patrik Laine, Brock Boeser, or even Vladimir Tarasenko, what do you think is the best option for the Ottawa Senators when it comes to adding a pure sniper? Boeser, Laine, let me know in the comments your opinions. I hope you enjoyed this video. Sign on, and bye.